President said, not because it's out of character for him to say, but because it's jarring to hear a president say it, that he hopes that, not that he hopes justice will be done, but that he hopes that the perpetrator will get the death penalty. And when I read that, I thought, wow, of course he does, and no one perhaps is surprised that he feels that, but to hear him say it is something else extraordinary.
Yeah. OK, well, Lee Cohen, thanks indeed for joining us, US political commentator there.
Now let's go to political strategist AJ Bruno for any information. AJ, what do you make of what we're hearing this afternoon?
Yeah, it's interesting. What it does sound like, this wasn't some mastermind, right? Apparently caught, I said, maybe 150 miles away. This is someone who had every chance to escape, get to a country that can't be extradited. But it just sounds like, we'll see what happens, but some sort of extremist who just had an axe to grind, saw an opportunity, didn't really bother to cover their tracks. Maybe they just want the notoriety. Very strange. So, yeah.
AJ, I'm just going to interrupt you. We can see the FBI director, Kash Patel, there walking up to the podium, and indeed others too. Let's listen in.
Gentlemen, at today's press conference, we will hear from Governor Cox, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Sheriff Mike Smith. We also have with us Utah DPS Commissioner Bo Mason, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles, and local and federal law enforcement partners. Following the remarks today, Governor Cox, Director Patel, and Commissioner Mason will take questions. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact, Tyler, also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulges, capital O-W-O, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow," and a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who's worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilize these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly. And I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver it to Governor Cox and his team. Last night, we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI. And we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. The FBI Salt Lake field office, along with our offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, our headquarters component in Quantico, all participate in the FBI. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, the special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI. This is very much an ongoing investigation, as the governor said, and we will continue to work with state and local authorities to develop the investigation, to provide them the evidence they need for their ongoing prosecutions, and we will be here to answer every call they absolutely have, as long as it takes, for as long as we need to find and apprehend whatever suspects were involved in this crime. Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Thank you, and good morning. I would just like to take a few minutes as the sheriff to express my gratitude for everybody who has played a part in this investigation. As you know, it's been a vast, a complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. It has been so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal. Our Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who's standing up here with us, has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us. I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community, because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support, and you gave it to us. We needed your patience, and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family, because that's what they need, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you, everybody, for everybody that have stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here, and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere, and every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those, and specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state. and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. You know, this bad stuff happens, and for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us, that somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here, and it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting, there was no looting, there were no cars set on fire, there was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with with words I share often from a friend and author, Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country, and he said, "I'm not optimistic." He said, "I hate optimism." Like, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country. And I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Governor, can you speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson, when he turned himself in?
I cannot speak to that right now.
Governor, how do you interpret the engravings on casing?
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating.
You talked about this level of hatred that this person expressed. Beyond that, is there anything in your view that you discovered that may have radicalized or changed him to prompt him to commit such a horrific act?
There's nothing more that we can share at this time.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating with a friend on Discord about the gun. Do you anticipate any more arrests?
We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests.
Do you believe he acted alone?
Yes, but the investigation is ongoing.
How he came into custody of police and where he is right now?
Yes, so right now, Mr. Robinson has been booked into the Utah County Jail. You heard the president this morning report that he was taken into custody, that his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. For those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him in. Please, I'll go here. I can't share any more than what I've already shared. Yeah. So how we obtained the gun? The gun was found here. So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County.
Is he talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I'm sorry? We don't have any information that would lead us to believe that. Yes, in fact, it was just released. Yes.
Is he talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here.
Very eloquently about trying to reunite this country. Do you feel this is a watershed in American history?
I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history. Yes. The question is, what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history, or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s. And having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets, we are not wired as human beings biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage, again, I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. Had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together, the Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion tonight, last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be, I mean, you know, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there. This is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m., the timeline that Director Patel gave us, led to the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection between those two events?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he changing outfits?
Correct. Yes. So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here. Yes.
The suspect was from Utah. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about where, and was he a student here at this university, and is there any history of mental illness?
Yeah. So. I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County, in the southernmost part of our state. Thank you, everyone, for your great work in getting this information out. I just say, process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that. Basically, we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information, as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
And welcome to the Martin Daubney Show. Just picking up there, an astonishing press conference by the governor of the state of Utah, Spencer Cox, also buttressed by the FBI director, Kash Patel, and Sheriff Mike Smith. Opened simply with the phrase, "We got him." Unequivocally, beg your pardon, they believe this is their man, the suspect of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, aged 22. A huge amount of information came out there. A young man who became increasingly radicalized and politicized, according to family members over dinner. The information disseminated yesterday about the inscriptions on bullet casings were made clear. One of them said, "Hey, fascist, catch." Obviously intimating when Spencer Cox there, the governor, was asked by the press if this shows it was a political assassination. He said that I think the evidence is clear. An embarrassment for the FBI, I believe, here, because earlier on, Kash Patel had claimed that they'd arrested this individual. That's not the case. He was voluntarily handed in after confessing to a family member who told, a friend of a family who told the father. Kash Patel saying the FBI delivered. He's already being slaughtered on social media. They didn't deliver in the eyes of people out there. Let's bring in Charlie Peters now. Charlie, you were listening in on that as well. A huge amount of information. Clearly, we have an individual here from a very ordinary, respectable, middle-class background, the son of a sheriff himself. And something happened to this young man. And now, Charlie Kirk, undeniably, the FBI claiming and the governor claiming they've got their man.
That's right, Martin. They've got their man. That's the line they're using after they shared an account of what happened before the arrest into custody of 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, with authorities releasing the mugshots you are seeing on your screen now. Now, in the detail we heard there from Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, we heard how the suspect's family told investigators that Robinson had become more political in the years before the shooting. And one family member is said to have told the investigators about an incident in which this young man came to dinner and said that Charlie Kirk was coming to Utah Valley University, and talked about why he didn't like Charlie Kirk and the viewpoints that he had. Now, Robinson had told this family member, we're told by the authorities, that Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. Now, as further parts of the investigation, a better sense that we're getting of it now, it's understood that investigators interviewed one of Robinson's roommates, who showed them messages between him and an account with the name Tyler on Discord. Now, for viewers and listeners who aren't aware, Discord is a messaging platform, a social media site often used by young people, particularly young men, and those who use gaming platforms as well. Now, the messages from Tyler refer to the need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point. And of course, earlier on, before this press conference, we did hear about a rifle being left at a drop point location in a wooded area, wrapped in a towel with a scope on it, a unique scope, among other elements. But it's a detail released by the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, about those engravings, Martin, that I think a lot of people were waiting for some information on. Now, the inscriptions are quite strange, and you could tell that Spencer Cox was, in a way, quite confused as he read them out. One of the unfired casings said, "Hey fascist, catch," and then the up arrow symbol, a right arrow symbol, and 3 down symbols. If people are confused about that, I certainly am myself, but looking at analysis online that's been shared by people who are sort of a Discord-related background, saying that this could be a reference to a video game and the controls you put in before an action is launched on a video game, although that's just speculation at this point. We also heard Spencer Cox say that on another one of the engravings, it was "Notices bulge, oh whoa, what's this?" Now, this is quite a well-known online meme where it's a language typically used by gamers to and online subcultures to troll or parody online subcultures and people who are involved in role-playing games, for example. Another unfired casing, and Spencer Cox didn't pick up on this, was Bella Ciao. Now, this is a very famous Italian anti-fascist resistance song from the Second World War. It's still sung by the Italian left to commemorate the end of fascism. And so when we heard those briefings yesterday about anti-fascist ideology, it's likely that this casing was at the top of that understanding. And also that reference, of course, "Hey fascist!" exclamation mark, "Catch!" exclamation mark, which we believe is on the engraved onto the casing of a round that was fired. And also the one of the engravings on a casing, written, we believe, by Tyler Robinson, said, "If you read this, you are gay." LMAO. Now, Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old, is in Utah County Jail. This investigation continues, and the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, said they will continue to chase every lead that they have.
Thank you, Charlie Peters, there for that full update on the suspect, the assassination suspect of Charlie Kirk. Let's go to our next guest now, who's been waiting very patiently. Thank you for that. And that's the American writer and the author, Cora Dansky, who joins us from Florida. Cora, welcome to the show, and thank you very, very much for waiting patiently. I was really, really keen to get you on, Cora, because in the aftermath of Charlie's assassination, you penned what I think is a beautiful message online, and that is, you said you disagreed with Charlie Kirk on just about everything, but we shared an opposition to gender identity, and you called for calm, and you called for an end to political violence, and I just thought it was a wonderful thing to have put out. And so what drove you to post that, Cora?
So the afternoon of the 10th was very difficult for many of us here, including people who agreed with Charlie Kirk, and including people, including myself, who were diametrically opposed to pretty much everything Charlie Kirk had to say about everything, except our shared views on so-called gender identity. And I just wanted to relate the story of my going on his show. He was very generous. There are a lot of people on the political right in America who have large media platforms who will not platform people, women especially, like myself, who are on the political left. But he wasn't like that. He was happy to have me join his show and do an interview. It was a delightful interview. He and his entire team were extremely polite, professional, and it was just, it was a human experience, and I wanted to relate that. And I do think it is absolutely essential, as the governor said, that people across the political spectrum come together and denounce political violence. It's just not okay.
And Cora, clearly from that press conference now, we've learned a huge amount of information, and it seems to be abundantly clear that this was a politically motivated assassination. We have on paper a very, very ordinary middle-class young man, Tyler Robinson, who obviously became increasingly politicised. That's a direct quote from that press conference. He became increasingly radicalised and became particularly hateful towards Charlie Kirk, who he said was full of hate. And the inscriptions on those casings there clearly showing that he thought that Charlie Kirk was a fascist, and he paid the ultimate price. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible moment, is it not? To have that stark realisation. I think we suspected this, but to have the confirmation that an ordinary young kid, something terrible happened to him, and he's taken a life in this most brutal of way, it would appear, still a suspect, not at the moment, because of a difference of opinion. It's a terrible indictment on America, it's a terrible indictment on the West, and it's a terrible indictment on the entire world.
It is. And I will just say, this is not about me, but a little bit of this is personal, because I speak out on behalf of women and girls as a sex class. I am what is known as a TERF, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for what is called TERF Island, a group that I am involved in called Women's Declaration International. The U.S. chapter is scheduled to meet in approximately 1 week, and I will acknowledge I am quite terrified of the possibility for gun violence. As you and your viewers surely know, the United States is obsessed with guns, and I have not ever been particularly afraid to simply walk around, but I am very afraid of myself potentially being a victim of political violence. I have in the past. I have been assaulted, had things thrown at me when I have simply stood up for women and girls as a sex class. And I've been afraid of gun violence, but I'm especially afraid of it now.
Cora Dansky, could I ask you about what could happen next? Spencer Cox there, the governor of Utah, has spoken a lot today about forgiveness, about how we must all learn to forgive. He even quoted Charlie Kirk there saying we have to forgive our enemies. It's the thing that annoys them the most. And yet, yesterday, the same governor was calling for the death penalty in this case. Of course, Utah has the death penalty. What do you think should happen next? Is there an eye for an eye? Do you think this young man deserves the death penalty?
I have been categorically, fundamentally opposed to the death penalty for several decades, having thought very seriously about it over the course of many years. Were I on that jury, I would not vote for the death penalty, but I would never be on that jury because we have a system in which prosecutors are entitled to strike people like me from the jury if we are categorically opposed to the death penalty. I, of course, cannot speculate on what's going to happen here. I just don't know. I would not vote for it.
Cara Dansky, something that struck me as very moving from Spencer Cox's testimony there. He was praying it was not one of us from Utah, but that prayer was not answered. It was one of us. But then he commended the citizens of Utah by saying there was no rioting, there was no looting, no cars were set on fire, there was no violence. There were vigils instead, there were prayers, there were people coming together, and he desperately called on all Americans, Democrats, MAGA, progressive, to follow that and please call for a calm in the United States. I'm sure you'd echo that sentiment.
Absolutely. And if there has been any violence in the wake of this, as a result of this, I'm unaware of it. So I'm happy about that. And yes, of course, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I am ideologically to the left of the Democratic Party. I remember the 1980s when my parents were Democrats and they had Republican friends, and they would fight about all things having to do with Ronald Reagan and trickle down economics and the Soviet Union and everything everyone used to fight about in the 80s, but they were friends. And I would really like to get to a place where we can do that.
OK, Cara Dansky, thank you so much for joining us on GB News today and sharing your expertise. And thank you again for writing what I thought was a beautiful message on social media. Thanks for your time. Sincerely, thank you. OK, let's get back to the studio for a quick bit of analysis. I'm joined by GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's been sat with me throughout that emotional press conference. Catherine, a huge amount of information there. What leapt out at you?
Yes, I thought the speech from the Utah governor was quite extraordinary. Some of the things he said, words are not violence, violence is violence. And I think that's it in a nutshell, isn't it? Because Charlie Kirk went around the country talking to people, engaging with them, debating. Now, many people didn't like his views on abortion or on gun control or whatever, but that's what he did. He talked. He wanted to engage with people of different views. And, you know, we have all the rows in this country and in America now about people saying things and being punished for saying things. But I think these words are not violence. Violence is violence, encapsulates it perfectly. And also hearing about this 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, who clearly has killed Charlie Kirk. It's also clear that it's happened because of the things that Charlie Kirk said, because we've heard that he was at a family dinner and he mentioned Charlie Kirk and said that Charlie Kirk was full of hate. I think most people now would think you should flip that. And in fact, it was this young 22-year-old man who was full of hate. And also what strikes me is just how ordinary he looks. We know that he had a place at Utah State University, that's a couple of hours north of Utah Valley University, where he committed this murder. It sounds like, though, he had dropped out of there, and after killing Charlie Kirk, he drove 260 miles home to his house in Washington, a very ordinary house, $600,000, where he lived with his mother, who worked for, with disabled children, his father, who worked in law enforcement, and two younger brothers. And you look at him and you just think, they look like such an ordinary family. What on earth has happened here?
It's also It's also worth pointing out that his father was a 27-year veteran of the Washington Sheriff's Department. There'll be a huge amount of questions there about was he brought up around firearms? What was his relationship with firearms? So much to analyse, but let's get now my next guest, the former FBI Executive Assistant Director, Chris Pyhota. Chris, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. Huge amount of information coming out of that press conference there from Utah. Unequivocally, they said, we got him. They've got their man.
Yes, good morning, and glad to be with you and your audience. And I'm glad that the authorities were able to locate and apprehend this individual responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. It minimizes or eliminates further danger to the public.
Do you think the FBI are going to get a bit of criticism off the back of this? Kash Patel, earlier on, we believe, had claimed that this individual had been arrested, but it turns out he'd handed himself in. Or as the White House stepped in to defend him, they said it's a very fast-moving case. These things happen.
Well, I think the communications in this matter will be subject to an after-action review. The subject, the shooter, he is in custody, and he turned himself in. That's correct. And I think this is a good lesson for people to take measured approaches when it comes to reporting these events for the public's knowledge. And I'm sure that it'll be analyzed later.
And there'll be a huge amount of analysis yet to begin, Chris Pyhota, because, of course, the inscriptions on those bullet casings give us a clear insight now. And when Spencer Cox, the governor, was asked, was this politically motivated assassination, he said, well, I think the evidence speaks for itself. Bullet casings engraved with things such as, hey, fascist, catch.
Right. I think what you're seeing now is some of the ideological and or political leanings of the shooter. You're going to see further investigation as far as the shooter's friends, family, associates, as well as direct interactions with the shooter himself. And I'm sure that will build a profile. The FBI does that very well. They have behavioral sciences people who will build a profile for this person, see what his political leanings and ideological leanings were, as well as any of the possible triggering events, so to speak, that pushed him to action in this event.
And Chris, also his father, we understand, a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department. That in itself is a hugely confrontational piece of information for a lot of people to get their heads around. It's like, how could the son of such a distinguished cop do this? And I'm assuming that a huge part of the investigation now will be what was his relationship or his proximity to firearms.
Correct. They're going to talk with his family. Like I said, they're going to build that profile on this individual. They're going to find out how he grew up, what his personality was like. They're going to look for all the root causes of his life that would cause him to do something like this. They're also going to look at again, how did he become proficient with firearms? He may have grown up hunting. It remains to be seen yet. It's speculation at this point, but he obviously knew how to use a firearm. So that'll come out in the investigative work after he's interviewed and his family are interviewed.
OK, thank you very much for joining us on the show today and giving us your expertise. Early in the morning there in America, thank you very much. Former FBI Executive Assistant Director, Chris Pyhota. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, a huge amount to analyse on what is an astonishing day. The FBI, the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, unequivocal. We got him. This is the suspect. This is their man. They believe now there is no other plan B. This is the suspect who they believe assassinated Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson in custody. Lots more on this next.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users on the M4 westbound between Junction 16 and Junction 17 face an accident, leading to all lanes being closed. In Lincolnshire, the A1 northbound is entirely shut between the junctions with the A151 and the A607 due to a road traffic collision. Major congestion is also reported on the M6 southbound in Lancashire, between junction 36 and junction 34, with delays of up to 30 minutes. And on the trains, Grand Central and Great Northern services are experiencing major disruption between Stevenage and London until the end of service. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored. Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable. What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK with all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on the show today. The huge breaking news this afternoon is that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has been named as a 22-year-old man from Utah, and that's Tyler Robinson. It was revealed earlier today at a press conference a short while ago that a family member was involved in turning him in, and it was also reported that Robinson had become, quote, more political in recent years and said he didn't like Charlie Kirk. We'll be reacting to this. Huge news throughout the rest of today's show. Welcome to the show. We got him. Those are the words of Utah Governor Spencer Cox at a press conference a short while ago from Utah. The man named as Tyler Robinson, 22, an ordinary student from Utah, father, a 27-year veteran of the Washington Sheriff's Department, a mother who helped disabled people in her life, a $600,000 family home. So far, so ordinary, and yet something clearly happened to this individual. He became more politicised, and we learned some astonishing information. Bullet casings engraved with slogans, messages such as, "Hey fascist, catch." When asked by the world's media, was this a political assassination, Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, claimed, I think the evidence speaks for itself. What happened to this young man who's in custody? How did he become the suspect of the assassination of Charlie Kirk? A huge amount of information to come. We'll have all the best analysis, experts and news all the way throughout the next 2 hours. Stick with me here on the show. Get in touch with your views. gbnews.com/yoursay is the way to do so. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 4 o'clock, well, let's bring you a recap then of that breaking news that the FBI has, in the last hour, named 22-year-old Tyler Robinson as the suspected arrest killer over the killing of US activist Charlie Kirk. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says investigators tracked Robinson after a family member came forward, revealing he had spoken about his hatred of Kirk's views. Robinson was seen on CCTV arriving at Utah Valley University on the day of the shooting and later found with a bolt-action rifle and bullets engraved with chilling messages.
We got him. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. Inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle read, "Hey fascist!" !"Catch!" This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history.
In other news this hour, pressure is mounting on number 10 after the sacking of Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to Washington. The former Labour grandee was dismissed over his links to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, links known at the time of his appointment. But Downing Street says new evidence only emerged this week. Labour MPs are now voicing fury, some branding the episode a shambles and questioning the role of Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, in approving the appointment. Sir Keir insists he remains confident in his top team, but one backbencher says panic has started to set in. Well, Reform leader Nigel Farage this morning shared his concerns.
An enormously talented bloke. Of that, there's no doubt. You know, I dealt with him when he was a European Commissioner 20 years ago. But to have appointed him to that role was a serious misjudgment from the Prime Minister. We don't yet know what the intelligence briefings would have said, but it looks as though Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's right-hand man, and the Prime Minister ignored the warnings, carried on. He was then reluctant to get rid of Mandelson, and he's now left himself in a very vulnerable position.
Specialist police are sweeping Windsor ahead of Donald Trump's state visit, with sniffer dogs and search teams scouring the area around the castle. The US president's two-day trip begins next week, including an overnight stay at the castle. Security will be at its tightest, with mass protests expected in both Windsor and London. The Prince and Princess of Wales will greet Mr Trump and First Lady Melania on Wednesday morning before they meet the King and Queen. And a Red Arrows flypast will also mark that visit. Prince Harry has made a surprise visit to Kyiv, saying he wants to do everything possible to help those injured in the war. The Duke of Sussex was greeted off the train this morning by the founder of Superhumans charity, which supports Ukrainians with prosthetic limbs and rehabilitation. It's Harry's first time in the capital after visiting a rehab centre in Lviv back in April. He's expected to outline new plans with his Invictus Games Foundation later, as Ukraine continues to grapple with tens of thousands of amputees. And Harry's trip comes just days after his Archwell Foundation pledged $500,000 to protect helping injured children in Ukraine and in Gaza. That's the latest from me. I better pick this up. I'll see you very shortly.
Thank you, Sam. Huge breaking news. In this past hour, we've learned that the FBI have confirmed that they've caught the man suspected of assassinating Charlie Kirk. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was arrested last night, and US President Donald Trump had earlier said that Robinson's father helped to turn his son in. And here's how the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, dramatically revealed that Robinson had been caught.
We got him. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. Inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle read, "Hey fascist!" !"Catch!" This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history.
There was a huge amount of information came out in what was an astonishing press conference. Let's now speak with GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, we got him unequivocally. They're stating this is their man. It's still a suspect, of course, at this stage. A huge amount of information about Tyler Robinson's background, a seemingly ordinary middle-class Utah resident who went to university there, the son of a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department, $600,000 house. On the surface, Charlie Peters, a very ordinary person with a very respectable upbringing. Yet we learned during that press conference something happened to this young man. He became more politicised. He talked how Charlie Kirk was full of hate, and we learned on those bullet inscriptions clear evidence, Charlie Peters. This has all of the hallmarks of a politically motivated assassination.
And Martin, political assassination is the language that Utah Governor Spencer Cox used on Wednesday night as Utah Valley University was still reeling from the fatal single shot of Charlie Kirk. But the same governor, in his update today at this, as you say, dramatic and quite astonishing press conference, gave the bulk of the information about law enforcement efforts since the fatal shooting. And interestingly, as you're seeing the 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, a mugshot of him on your screens now, the FBI director, Kash Patel, was there more to pay tribute to his own agency rather than actually giving the main updates on the information acquired. That duty fell to the Utah governor, who said that investigators had reviewed video footage and identified that man on your screen now, Robinson, arriving in a Dodge Challenger vehicle at approximately 8:29 a.m. on the 10th of September. So just under 4 hours before that fatal shot was fired. And when he was encountered in person by the FBI and other investigators on the 12th of September, he was observed wearing clothing similar to what he was seen wearing in at 8:29 2 days prior. That was, I quote, a plain maroon T-shirt, light-coloured shorts, a black hat with a white logo and light-coloured shoes. Now, that hat and those shoes, I think there's a realistic possibility those are the same hats and shoes that you're going to see on your screen now of the alleged gunman jumping from that roof moments after the shooting at around 12:20 local time 2 days ago. But otherwise, he was wearing jeans and a black T-shirt in that incident. And Cox continued to say that a member of the suspect's family has, as you described, Martin, described him as becoming more political in recent years, that Charlie Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. That's the language that Robinson was said to have used at a dinner. But the more interesting information for me is when Cox detailed some of messages sent by a user called Tyler on one of his roommates' Discord messaging app groups. Now, Discord is a platform used by gamers, a lot of young men, to speak live while they play video games and while they just talk generally. These Discord sessions can last for hours, and the messages from Tyler state the need to retrieve a rifle, leaving it in a bush, such as a wooded area, and then leaving the weapon in a towel. And then it was also finally the details about the engravings on those bullets and the casings given by Spencer Cox. Hey, fascist, catch, and if you read this, you are gay. Notices bulge, oh, what's this? And Bella Ciao, Ciao Bella, anti-fascist Italian language used regularly during the Second World War and still used by anti-fascists today, Martin.
Thank you for that update there, Charlie Peters. Excellent as ever. We'll come back to you, of course, throughout the rest of the show. Well, let's now speak with GB News' Ben Leo, who is in Washington, D.C. Ben, welcome to the show. Bittersweet, of course, for you. You're a friend of Charlie Kirk's. You interviewed him for GB News. You were very moved, of course, upon learning of his assassination. But there we have it. We got him. This man now has been detained, and an incredible amount of information coming out there, Ben, about how a seemingly ordinary young man became radicalised.
Yeah, Charlie Peters there quite eloquently covering all the key detail. I mean, it's been an extraordinary 24 hours or so. President Donald Trump was the first person to announce that Charlie Kirk had been killed from that single gunshot from Tyler Robinson. He posted on Truth Social. I broke the news live on air. That was extraordinary in itself, that it was the President of the United States announcing that news. And then first thing this morning, President Donald Trump, again, he was on Fox and Friends, which is the Fox News Channel breakfast show here in America. He was the first person to announce that they'd arrested somebody. He made the detail that it was a family member, the guy's father, Tyler Robinson's father, who'd handed him in. And Donald Trump, you can see over the past 24 hours here, he gave a speech at the Arlington Memorial in Virginia yesterday for 9/11. You could see the sadness and the grief on his face. He was a dear friend of Charlie Kirk, long credited, of course, with helping him get elected to the presidency back in November by galvanising the youth vote. President Trump this morning, just very, very sweetly reminiscing on some stories and times with Charlie Kirk, his friend. He was saying that Charlie would call him up a day before a big Turning Point USA event, similar to the one he held in Utah where he was murdered in cold blood. And he'd say, "Sir, Mr. President, we have a big event tomorrow somewhere. Could you please come along? We'd love your support." And Donald Trump was saying, "Charlie, I'm the president now. I can't just go in 24 hours. He was saying how much he loved the guy and he was a family friend. What's key here is the inscription on the bullets that have been retrieved by the FBI. As Charlie Peters said, anti-fascist messaging. It's similar to the calls and the rhetoric we've heard in the UK at the likes of the Epping protests, where counter-protesters are calling locals fascists, Nazis and Hitler. And I've been talking about it a lot over the past day or so. That kind of language, that kind of rhetoric, it can unfortunately lead to situations like this where America and indeed the world has lost a bright young talent. Not only that, not only a political titan, but a father of 2 young babies as well, Martin.
And we're seeing a live piece on our screen now from Phoenix, Arizona. That's the Turning Point headquarters there. Balloons and wreaths, flowers and messages being laid out. And of course, Ben Leo, Charlie Kirk's body flown back to Phoenix today, and heartbreaking pictures of his wife getting off that flight with J.D. Vance's wife. Ben Leo, thank you very much for joining us from Washington, D.C. Always an absolute pleasure. Now let's get back to the studio. Let's bring in my next guest, and that's the Freedom campaigner and the commentator, Montgomery Toms. Montgomery, thank you for joining us. I wanted to ask you about forgiveness, because Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, said in that press conference, a very, very emotional press conference, that he'd never been as angry and he'd never been as sad in his life as he has been in the past 48 hours. And Montgomery, he'd called for the death penalty of this individual in very, very strong terms. Utah, of course, has the death penalty, has had for many, many years. And yet, Montgomery, he spoke in that press conference then about forgiveness. He talked about how Charlie Kirk talked to him when he was still alive about forgiveness. He said, "Charlie's words pulled me back from the brink." And he said, "The weak cannot ever forgive. Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them more." And he talked a lot about his faith, about the Bible, Christianity. And I wonder if we've seen an astonishing real-time admission there, Montgomery Toms, that perhaps forgiveness is the best route. What's your take on that? I know you're a devout Christian yourself.
Absolutely agree. Now, the thing is, we've got to honour Charlie. And this assassination, what's happened to Charlie Kirk, is symbolic of something, a build-up of something that we've seen over the past, you could say, kind of 5 years or possibly longer. And what he would want, if you ask me, is for us to forgive. And that's incredibly hard to do, but we have to do it because we can't play these individuals at their own game. We have to be bigger, we have to be better, we have to be stronger. And ultimately, what Charlie pushed for was debate. It was bashing ideas out, it was conversing, and it was not resulting to violence or death or war or attacking one another. It was to say, we have opinions, we have ideas, we need to have these conversations, because if we don't, terrible things can take place, and that's exactly what's happened. So yeah, 100% we need to forgive, but we also need to remember exactly what happens when we don't debate and, as I say, hash ideas out.
Because Montgomery, Spencer Cox also extraordinarily talked about, people are saying to me, why are we so invested in this case? Every child taken is a child of God. And he then went on to vocalise why he's so invested in this case. He said this was an attack on all of us, our ideals. This cut to the very foundation of who we are. Political violence is different to all other violence, he said. He said, if we can't have a clash of ideas, then we have no hope.
This isn't about left versus right anymore, far left, right. I mean, if you ask me, I think these terms have sort of lost their meanings and original definitions. If you ask me, this is a battle of good and evil, and we're seeing it in the UK as well. We are seeing members of Antifa, we are seeing Marxist organisations who are hurling abuse at other people, calling people like myself fascists because, for example, we just believe there are two sexes, right? So we've lost the original definitions in the UK and in the US, and I think this is far more profound, far more disturbing. It's about saying that there's this kind of evil which is taking over people, and people are getting so obsessed with this cult-like mindset that anyone who just wants to defend basic freedoms, therefore, gets called a far-right fascist and an evil individual. It's terrible. We have to push back at this, just linking to your initial point, with forgiveness, with love, because otherwise we're just going to keep going round in this same circle of violence, attacking one another, rather than calm, rational, open debate.
Montgomery Toms, beautifully put, and thank you for your time. Thanks for coming into the studio to see us today here at Westminster at GB News. Let's go to my next guest now. I'm joined by the Conservative MP Greg Stafford. Mr Stafford, welcome to the show on an incredibly emotional, fast-moving day. What's your initial thoughts on the fact the Governor of Utah there unequivocally stating, we got him?
Well, first of all, Martin, can I just send my condolences to all the friends of Charlie Kirk, and especially to his wife Erica and his two children. I can't even imagine, as a father of children, what they must be going through. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But I'm so glad it appears that the perpetrator of this horrific crime has now been caught. Obviously, due process has to be followed. I understand that. But if he is the killer, as everyone suspects, and I hope that he is dealt with very, very swiftly.
And how do you think that should go, Greg Stafford? We just talked in the studio here, of course, he is still a suspect, although by the language used there, he is the prime suspect. We'd expect charges to follow pretty soon. Greg Stafford, there is the power of the death penalty in Utah. Do you think that should happen?
Well, I mean, clearly that's up to the state of Utah and the jury and the judge that deal with that.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, do you think that should happen? Is that the fitting response, or is forgiveness the correct response?
Well, my personal view is I'm not in favour of the death penalty, but obviously it's up for the people of Utah to decide. What I would say is that I didn't know Charlie Kirk personally, but everything that he talked about was about dialogue, was about bringing people together, and I hope that what comes out of this, if there can be any good that comes out of this tragedy, is that we actually start thinking about how to forgive people, how to talk rationally with one another, how to listen constructively to one another, and actually come back from what I would say in America, but also here in Britain, the sort of chilling nature of free speech in this country, which is disappearing.
Greg Stafford, do you echo that sentiment that political violence is different to all of the violence there? We heard that from Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, because if we can't disagree, we have no hope.
Well, I mean, obviously, anyone who is murdered, that's an absolute tragedy. But I do think that when there is a political killing, a political murder like this, especially one where it is around free speech, it is fundamentally wider and larger than just the very tragic killing of one man. It's an absolute assault on everything that we as the West believe in, which is free speech, free expression, being able to disagree with one another without coming to blows. And so that does elevate it, I think. And that is why I think we've seen such an outpouring of disgust, horror and grief over this killing across the Western world.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have your company. That's Conservative MP Greg Stafford. Thank you. Now let's get straight to my next guest now. I'm joined by the US political commentator John Trevino. John, thanks for joining us on this momentous day, an incredible amount of information coming out. What's your first thoughts on the suspected assassination of Charlie Kirk before we get on to this individual who they believe is the perpetrator?
Look, Charlie Kirk was killed for engaging in classic American political behavior, rational discourse, reasoned debate, persuasion, and he was murdered for it. So the killer was really aiming at all of us who believe in the American model, and that's why it's so serious and grave.
And John Trevino, we've been talking a lot about forgiveness. I think an incredible press conference from Spencer Cox. He's a by the way, I think is a huge political star for the future. But when he talked about how he's never been so angry, never been so sad in his entire life as this past 48 hours, and he had called, as I repeated there, for the death penalty to apply to this suspect before they were even apprehended. And yet he spoke very movingly about the power of forgiveness, no doubt his Christianity having a huge part of that. What's the mood in America, though? A lot of people seem that they think there should be an eye for an eye.
No, I don't agree with your characterization at all, because there's no contradiction between Christian forgiveness and justice, both in the Christian concept and in the American concept. Justice must be done. And that doesn't mean we surrender to the same dark impulses that motivate so much of the left in America these days, which is indeed devoid of forgiveness. The forgiveness and the charity that we should exhibit is the kind that Charlie Kirk exhibited in his own life. But that's not contrary to the demands for justice now, which will be done now that we have apparently the man who did it.
And, you know, Spencer Cox there, he actually quoted Charlie Kirk and he said, "The weak cannot forgive. It's best to always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them more." I also thought it was very noteworthy, John Trevino, that he spoke about how people reacted in Utah. He said, "I was praying it was not one of us from Utah, but that prayer was not answered." But he commended the community for saying there was no rioting, no looting, no cars were set on fire, no violence. Instead, there were vigils, there were prayers.
Of course. Well, we're not the left. That is the province of the left. The left in America is the one that riots, that murders, that kills people for free speech and open debate. And that's not us. And that's why you didn't see it after the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
John Trevino, do you pray that this can spell an end to the political madness in America?
Of course, I pray for the best every day. What's prudent and realistic, though, is that we're at a beginning, not an end in this case. There's one thing that I disagree with Governor Cox on in his press conference, is that this is not closure. There is a whole network and a whole movement that spawned this murder, and it's going to have to be dealt with.
OK, John Trevino, thank you very much for joining us on GB News today. I sincerely appreciate your input. Thank you. Plenty more coming up. So the reaction to that huge breaking news that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has been named as a 22-year-old man from Utah. His name is Tyler Robinson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference.
It's fun.
Oh, no, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Now return to that huge breaking news story that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has been named as a 22-year-old man from Utah called Tyler Robinson. It was revealed that a family member was involved in turning him in. And it was also reported that Robinson had become, quote, more political in recent years and said, quote, he didn't like Charlie Kirk, who he said was filled with hate. Now, meanwhile, there was an uproar in the European Parliament as the President of the Parliament refuses a 1-minute silence for Charlie Kirk.
Rhetoric that incites violence. Please stand with me in reflection and prayer in his honour, and I yield the rest of my time for a moment of silence.
Herr Kollege Weimers, wir haben abgesprochen, Sie wissen, dass die Präsidentin hat eine Schweigeminute abgelehnt. Wir fahren weiter fort. Wir kommen zum Bericht von Herrn
Shut up!
Quite astonishing scenes there in the European Parliament. Let's now speak with the Danish member of the European Parliament, and that's Anders Vistisen. Anders, welcome to the show. Before we get to the disgraceful scenes there in the European Parliament, can I get your immediate reaction to the assassination, the political assassination, it seems, of Charlie Kirk?
It's a horrible event, I think, that shocked everyone in the Western Hemisphere to see a political activist shot down in the middle of a democratic debate at a university campus. I think it just goes to show that many Western universities have been radicalized to a point where dissenting opinions are not welcome, and even murder is now apparently on the table.
And Anders, let's go now back to that story in the European Chamber. It just seems incredible. Here's the Parliament that took a 1-minute silence, of course, to George Floyd back in June 2020. They honoured that individual, and yet they simply refused to pass the same respect to Charlie Kirk. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's shocking scenes, but it's daily life in the European Parliament. There is a two-tier justice there, where a request from the left to honor even a criminal like George Floyd is always appreciated. But if it's a person from the right, whether it's Charlie Kirk in this instance, or where we had the shooting, almost fatal shooting of Prime Minister Fico in Slovakia, there is not any appetite to mourn or to mark that kind of political violence when it happened to a right-wing figure.
And you were there, I understand, in Chamber when this happened, and, you know, people, the Conservative side of the Chamber stood in silence during a speech. I believe it was Charlie Weimers, the Swedish MEP. It was his motion to use his speaking time for a minute's silence. And instead, Socialist MEP simply talked through it. Disgraceful scenes.
Not even that. The chairman of the parliament, the president of the parliament, even just continued voting. So basically, while we were standing up, you could see the back of me in the clip that you just showed. They just started voting in the voting session. So basically, there was no mark of respect. They didn't even allow the 1-minute speaking time of Mr. Weimers to be carried out, and for that 30 seconds or so to be a mourning of the death of Charlie Kirk.
And Anders, do you believe that this is just typical, indicative of the political intolerance we're now increasingly seeing on the political left? And dare I say it, the kind of intolerance that led this young man here, Tyler Robinson, to become so radicalised he is now the suspect in a political assassination.
There's no doubt in my mind that the most intolerant part of the political spectrum is the left. We have claims all the time in Parliament that, for instance, all men are rapists and all violence stem from toxic masculinity or excessive whiteness. It seems like for the left in the European Parliament, at least, there is no bigger crime than being born a white male. And that's a bit crazy when you think about they are so obsessed with talk of racism and other kind of accusation in that degree.
Well, thank you for joining us on the show today. That's the Danish member of the European Parliament, MEP Anders Vistisen, on quite extraordinary scenes in the European Parliament. They're simply talking through a minute's silence for Charlie Kirk. Thank you, Anders. Always a pleasure to have you on GB News. Lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including the huge breaking news, of course, that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has now been named as a 22-year-old man from Utah called Tyler Robinson. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. The top stories from the newsroom this hour. Utah's governor has said the suspect in Charlie Kirk's killing has been caught. Spencer Cox named 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, who confessed to his father before his family helped hand him in. Bullet casings were found etched with messages like, "Hey, fascist, catch." The FBI's hailed historic progress made to catch him in just 33 hours. Specialist forces are sweeping Windsor ahead of Donald Trump's state visit there. The president arrives on Wednesday next week for a two-day state visit, with mass protests expected. The Red Arrows and F-35 jets will stave an unprecedented flyby. Back home, fury at number 10 over the sacking of Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to Washington. He was forced out over ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Labour MPs are now calling the episode a shambles as opposition parties demand vetting documents be released. The Netherlands say they will boycott Eurovision 2026 if Israel competes, joining Ireland in protest over Gaza. The Dutch broadcaster said Israel's actions clash with the contest's values. UK Eurovision veteran Phil Coulter has also urged the BBC to pull out. And the UN Security Council has condemned Israel's strike on a Hamas compound in Doha, a move unusually backed by the US. Qatar's Prime Minister told the Council Israel has gone beyond any borders, while Israel insists there is no sanctuary for terrorists. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you at 5.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Now, coming up, more analysis on that huge breaking news story that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has now been named as a 22-year-old man from Utah called Tyler Robinson. That's next.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. For a time this evening, we'll see showers easing away, some heavy rain moving into northern areas overnight, and it's going to be quite breezy at times, particularly if you catch any heavy showers, turning quite gusty. And looking at the bigger picture, we've got low pressure situated to the north, bringing us in this westerly flow. So it's mainly western areas that are catching the bulk of the showers, but they're still spread eastwards overnight. So even across eastern central parts of England, we could catch the odd one or two. A mix of showers and clear spells through the course of the night before this heavy showery band starts to move into southern Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales through the early hours of the morning. So some quite heavy downpours during Saturday morning, but for many it will be a mixture of dry spells and also some showers. Now, some of these showers could linger through the morning, particularly across Scotland. This heavy band pushing its way eastwards into the North Sea. It clears fairly quickly, some clearer skies behind, but also a mixture of showers, particularly around western coasts. Similar across Northern Ireland, there'll be a fair amount of cloud around and some showers starting to push into the west. And elsewhere across England and Wales, sunny spells and showers. And that's the theme for the beginning of the weekend. Now, some of these showers could turn heavy. We could see some hail and thunder mixed in there too. And once again, the bulk of the showers will be pushing into western areas, but odd showers could drift their way eastwards into central and eastern parts of England. Some sunny spells behind it, though it's going to be quite breezy, particularly around any exposed areas. And temperatures will be around average for the time of year, highs reaching around 18 to 19 degrees Celsius in the south. Still a chance of some showers through into the evening. They'll eventually ease away, a ridge of high pressure building, bringing a cool night with clearer skies. And there'll be some sunshine to start the day before heavy outbreaks of rain and some strong winds move through on Sunday. Now, there is a Met Office warning issued for the evening through into Monday, so keep an eye on the Met Office website for any details.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Commuters are advised to prepare for significant congestion on the M62 westbound at junction 19, as well as on the M42 northbound between junctions 7A and 9. Travellers on the M4 westbound in Wiltshire and the A3 southbound should also anticipate severe delays due to ongoing roadworks and increased traffic volume. Additionally, train passengers will face major disruptions on routes between Kentish Town and London, as well as between Stevenage and London. These disturbances are expected to persist until services conclude for the day. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 4:38. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, more reaction now to that huge breaking news story that the suspect in the murder of Charlie Kirk has been apprehended. And I'm joined by the US political commentator, Toria Brooke. Toria, a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us on GB News. Can I first, before we talk about Tyler Robinson and what perhaps motivated him, can I get your response to what was the decimating news of the political assassination of Charlie Kirk?
So when I found out, I was actually heading to the studio to have a segment with GB News. And I mean, I think we were all just in shock. I don't think any of us will ever forget where we were when we heard about it. And it was just such a moment of shock for everyone in this community. And I think anyone who does news, especially in the United States, in our age range, I mean, Charlie was my age. So it was just such an earth-shattering revelation. Like, it didn't even feel real. And most of the friends that I've made through this were through Turning Point events. I still don't even have words, and it still doesn't feel real because he really was larger than life. And despite how sad and what a tragedy this really is, there's just been a huge revival in America and around the world, I think, after this event, which is what Charlie would have wanted, given what happened.
And Toria Brooke, now the details of this suspect are pouring out. Tyler Robinson, we learned, became increasingly politicised in recent years. He talked of how he hated Charlie Kirk, or he said he was filled with hate. And clearly those bullet casings giving a very, very clear indicator of his political motives. One of them engraved with the message, "Hey, fascist, catch." Toria Brooke, we've talked a lot, have we not, about the politicisation, the radicalisation of a great many Americans, great many people around the world, but this has to be a line in the sand. This has to stop.
I think this is bigger than just the United States. I think conservatives across the world right now are being attacked. We saw what happened yesterday. You know, Eduardo Bolsonaro's father, Jair, the former president of Brazil, just got sentenced for an alleged coup to maintain power after he was wrongfully really removed from presidency, in my opinion. But this is not just happening in the United States. We're seeing across the board that traditional and conservative values are being attacked. So this wouldn't surprise me. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about whether the bullets actually stated what was mentioned, because before it actually said that it was anti-fascist comments and transgender ideology written on the bullet. So the rhetoric has changed now to what they're saying the bullets were engraved with. So I'd be interested to hear more on what comes out in the developing investigation.
Toria Brooke, Spencer Cox spoke very eloquently about forgiveness during his press conference. In fact, he directly quoted Charlie Kirk saying, "The weak cannot forgive. Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them more." He even had a wry smile at the remembrance of Charlie Kirk. And yet, yesterday, the same governor had said he would be calling for the death penalty of the suspect. Where do you think America lies on this spectrum, the majority of America, about is it an eye for an eye, or should we rise above that and forgive?
I think that forgiveness and vengeance are two separate things. We're at a tipping point in this country and the world, and the way that, Charlie Kirk was assassinated in plain sight, it was traumatic. I mean, his children were there to witness it. There were tons of youth that had to see this, and now everyone's just seeing it recurring on their phone. It's almost like a trauma experience that we've all shared together that no one should have to witness. So many people are calling for the individual that's responsible for this, or individuals, to be publicly executed. We're at a tipping point in this country, as I've said, and people want vindication.
And Toria Brooke, not only is the death penalty legal, it's commonplace in Utah, and it is legal for people to be executed via a firing squad in Utah. Some people are saying that would be a fitting end, or is that simply too barbaric for words?
I personally don't think it's too barbaric for words. Call me a savage, but I think we're living in 2025 where, things that we have witnessed before have not happened until now or in several decades. So I think that there's going to be unprecedented moves that are made by President Trump. I think most people are waiting to see how he's going to handle this, and this could define his second term.
I was very moved by what Spencer Cox said about the reaction of people in Utah. He said he was praying it wasn't one of us from Utah, but those prayers weren't answered. But he said there wasn't any burning of cars, there wasn't rioting, there wasn't looting, there wasn't violence. There were instead prayers and vigils, trying to make the clear differentiation, I believe, between good and evil. And yet, a great deal of America still seems consumed by vengeance, consumed by political violence.
I don't advocate for political violence. I simply advocate for justice. And I believe in the summer of 2020, we saw the quote unquote summer of love, where there was mass rioting and destruction from liberals, but also, Antifa that was funded by George Soros and liberal factions that were pushing for violence. But this violence that they were pushing, it wasn't about making something right with a wrongfully committed crime that occurred. We just had the murder of Irina, and that was earth-shattering for many people to witness as well. I mean, this man is committing this crime in broad daylight on public transportation. I think many women especially are feeling unsafe in this country and around the world. I mean, we're seeing in Britain, the rise of illegal migrant crime and the way that people are handling it. I mean, I saw a video a couple weeks ago of young Scottish girls, I think they were about 8 years old, brandishing knives to handle the crime. So I think we have a huge issue worldwide. And like I said, I mean, President Trump, in my opinion, is essentially the leader of the free world. And the way that he handles this situation is truly going to set the precedent for the way other governments are handling this as well. I mean, even El Salvador, the way that they're handling their prison system and the way that they're trying to rectify situations, I think we can take a page from them as well.
Toria Brooke, I was very moved by the fact that one of the last tweets that Charlie Kirk ever put out was about that Ukrainian girl, a horrific image of her after she'd been stabbed. And he said, America will never be the same again. And now here we are, Charlie Kirk himself, his life has been taken. Toria Brooke, thank you very much for joining us on GB News and giving us your perspective. Thank you very much indeed. No kind of much more reaction to that massive breaking news. The man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has now been named as a 20-year-old man from Utah called Tyler Robinson. First, you listen.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's a mostly settled picture across much of Europe. Occasional sunshine in places, otherwise lots of sunshine. And that's the story across Spain and Portugal. Mostly settled here, plenty of sunny spells, though we could see some showers affecting Barcelona, also parts of Nice. But elsewhere across Italy, the Adriatic coastline, all the way through into Greece, it should be mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. And that theme will continue as we head into next week, along with the warm temperatures. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
I thought you'd set up a new version of Pimlico Plumbers in London.
Yeah, my family have set up a company called We Fix London, but we started planning that, 2 years before Labour got in. If we'd known Labour was getting in, we wouldn't have planned it. So obviously we've got to comply with the tax regulations, but anybody with any sense would agree with what I'm saying. The taxes are too high in the UK for wealthy people. Wealthy people can go and work anywhere in the world and be financially a lot better off.
And we had a non-dom regime that was basically stable for 200 years. It's only recently that it's been changed. And we're changing it and making it harder, just as other countries are making it easier. So you can go to Italy and you can negotiate an amount that you will pay. Portugal's been welcoming people. Malta's been welcoming people. All over the world, countries are saying, please come and bring your money. And the UK is saying, we're going to take all your money. We don't want you anymore.
That's right. Look, they're all encouraging sort of UK business people to come there, and it's working. If you become a tax exile in Italy, you pay 200 grand for the year. You don't have to pay no more. But the real problem is we're wasting their money, and they should be encouraging entrepreneurs to be staying. I think our biggest export at the moment is wealthy people.
So you're a businessman. You know how to do things and make a profit. If you're advising the Chancellor on how to get the money the country needs to pay for the public services, what would you be saying? Because at the moment, the tax revenues don't meet our expenditure. There is a gap. Something needs to give.
Resign.
All right, but that's not the answer.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 5. Now you see live pictures on your screen now, the view of the Utah County Jail, where Tyler Robinson, a young Utah man suspected of killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk at a university, is now in custody in that county jail. You can see live on your screens. Let's get some more huge breaking news on that story now. And I'm joined by GB News presenter Ben Leo, who is in Washington, D.C. Ben, welcome back to the show. Huge conversation is springing up, Ben Leo, about the mood in America. One side of the camp saying it's time for vengeance. Of course, the death penalty is fully legal in Utah. Not only that, you can be shot by firing squad. But the Governor, Spencer Cox, spoke very eloquently at that press conference. Instead, we should go for forgiveness. He quoted Charlie Kirk himself, saying the weak cannot forgive, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them more. What's the mood in America?
Martin, good afternoon, viewers. The mood is pretty divided, not least with the reaction from some of those on the left who are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death over the past 24 hours. I'm sure you guys at home have seen the videos doing the rounds online, just very sick and twisted individuals celebrating the murder in cold blood of a fellow human being, regardless of their politics. The governor in Utah, as you said, eloquently putting Charlie Kirk's words out to the nation, saying that the best way to disarm hate and violence is with forgiveness, because they don't know how to handle it. But on the flip side, it was President Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk's dear friend, who this morning on Breakfast TV here in America was saying, I hope they give him the death penalty. The death penalty, of course, as you said, in Utah is real. It's a thing. As firing squad is one of the options. But Charlie Kirk was a man of deep faith. He was a Christian. He was a Jesus, God-loving man. And the conversation now is, what would Charlie have wanted? Well, Charlie Kirk certainly would have wanted the continuation of open discourse, the sharing of ideas, the democratic principles which underpin this nation and the West. But would Charlie Kirk have wanted his killer to face the death penalty? That's the big conversation now. I'd argue, knowing Charlie for a very short amount of time that I did, I met him maybe once or twice and spoke to him very briefly. In fact, I was texting him and the team last week asking if he would come on our new American show here in the United States, broadcast, of course, to UK audiences every midnight fairly soon. The funeral will take place possibly next weekend. President Donald Trump has said that he would like to go. He feels he has an obligation to go as well. But Tyler Robinson, the detail that's been released this morning of his arrest, as you've been covering over the past hour or so, just extraordinary how it was his own father, the 22-year-old's father, who shopped him in to the authorities. And knowing that the death penalty is in existence in Utah, it's a conversation which needs to be had. I mean, it's an interesting debate. Would you, as a father at home, Martin, would you shop your own child in knowing that he'd possibly face the death penalty? It's a conversation which is now sparking all across America. I don't know, Martin, it's a question for you. Would you, as a loving father, would you shop your own child in for the death penalty?
I think it's one of the most difficult questions you can possibly have to ask or answer. And clearly, a 27-year-old veteran of Washington Sheriff's Department has decided perhaps the only way out is to try and get this man, Tyler Robinson, in front of some form of clemency. And, you know, we seem to hear indications of clemency from the governor there. But I don't know. It's the most difficult moral conundrum you could ever hope to face.
Yeah, well, that's what's going on here now in America. That's the conversation which is being ignited off the back of this. Of course, the other thing to talk about is the anti-fascist element to it. The Tyler Robinson's bullets inscribed with anti-fascist messaging saying, "Hey, fascist, ciao, bella, cella, bow, cella, bella, ciao." Apologies. So, yeah, a sadness, a dark day here in America, Martin, but conversations being ignited all across the shop, not least about the death penalty.
Thank you very much, Ben Leo, for joining us from Washington, D.C. We'll cross back to you live throughout the rest of the show. Thanks for your expertise, as ever. Now, just to wrap this out, live pictures of the view of the Utah County Jail, where Tyler Robinson, a young man suspected of killing the Conservative activist Charlie Kirk, is being held in custody. We'll have full analysis and reaction next with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. For a time this evening, we'll see showers easing away, some heavy rain moving into northern areas overnight, and it's going to be quite breezy at times, particularly if you catch any heavy showers, turning quite gusty. And looking at the bigger picture, we've got low pressure situated to the north, bringing us in this westerly flow. So it's mainly western areas that are catching the bulk of the showers, but they're still spread eastwards overnight. So even across eastern central parts of England, we could catch the odd one or two. A mix of showers and clear spells through the course of the night before this heavy showery band starts to move into southern Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales through the early hours of the morning. So some quite heavy downpours during Saturday morning, but for many it will be a mixture of dry spells and also some showers. Now, some of these showers could linger through the morning, particularly across Scotland. This heavy band pushing its way eastwards into the North Sea. It clears fairly quickly, some clearer skies behind, but also a mixture of showers, particularly around western coasts. Similar across Northern Ireland, there'll be a fair amount of cloud around and some showers starting to push into the west. And elsewhere across England and Wales, sunny spells and showers. And that's the theme for the beginning of the weekend. Now, some of these showers could turn heavy. We could see some hail and thunder mixed in there too. And once again, the bulk of the showers will be pushing into western areas, but odd showers could drift their way eastwards into central and eastern parts of England. Some sunny spells behind it, though it's going to be quite breezy, particularly around any exposed areas. And temperatures will be around average for the time of year, highs reaching around 18 to 19 degrees Celsius in the south. Still a chance of some showers through into the evening. They'll eventually ease away, a ridge of high pressure building, bringing a cool night with clearer skies. And there'll be some sunshine to start the day before heavy outbreaks of rain and some strong winds move through on Sunday. Now, there is a Met Office warning issued for the evening through into Monday, so keep an eye on the Met Office website for any details.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the M62 westbound face significant delays at junction 19 due to a collision. All lanes are closed. This should ease around 5:30 this evening. In Wiltshire, an incident on the M4 westbound between junctions 16 and 17 is causing 1-hour delays, with resolution expected just after 7 this evening. In Surrey, the A3 southbound has a 15-minute delay due to a broken-down vehicle between the A283 Milford North and the A333, expected to clear by 6:15 this evening. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Kentish Town or Stevenage and London until the end of service. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting live across the UK with all the very latest news, debate and analysis. And here's what's coming up on the show today. The huge breaking news story that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has now been named as a 22-year-old man from Utah. His name is Tyler Robinson. And it was revealed earlier today that a family member was involved in turning him in, and it was also reported that Robinson had become, quote, more political in recent years, and he said he didn't like Charlie Kirk. We'll be reacting to this huge news throughout the show. Live pictures there of Utah County Jail, where that man is being held in custody. Well, to the show, huge breaking news this afternoon. The suspect of the assassination, the political assassination of Charlie Kirk, is now in police custody in Utah County Jail. I believe we have some live pictures to show you of that. He is inside, we believe, turned in by a family member, believed to be his father. At an astonishing news conference earlier on today, the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, detailed how he'd never been angrier and sadder in the past 48 hours than he had been in his entire life. Incredible information we learned about insignia, messages on the bullet casings that were used in this political assassination. It looks like, hey fascist, catch, with 3 arrows on that case. We now believe is a sign of the anti-fascist movement. Ciao Bella, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, the anti-fascist song of the far left. This now having all the hallmarks of a seeming political assassination. How was an ordinary young man, it seems, in a middle-class, respectable area, the son of a 27-year veteran of the Washington Sheriff's Department, how did he become so radicalised? That's the conversation we'll be having throughout the rest of the show. Get in touch usual way, gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good evening to you just after 5 o'clock. Well, let's start with a recap then of that developing news in the United States, where we now know that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson has been named by the FBI as the suspect arrested over the killing of US activist Charlie Kirk. Utah Governor Spencer Cox says investigators tracked Robinson after a family member came forward, revealing he had spoken about his hatred of Kirk's views. Robinson was seen on CCTV arriving at the university in Utah on the day of the shooting and later found with a bolt-action rifle and bullets engraved with chilling messages.
We got him. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. Inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle read, "Hey fascist!" ! Catch! ! This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history.
In other news tonight, pressure is mounting on Number 10 after the sacking of Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to Washington. The former Labour grandee was dismissed over his links to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Links known at the time of his appointment, but Downing Street says new evidence only emerged this week. Labour MPs are now voicing their fury, some branding the episode a shambles and questioning the role of Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, in approving that appointment. Sir Keir Starmer, though, insists he retains full confidence in his top team, but one backbencher has said panic is starting to set in. Well, it is, of course, the second ministerial crisis in just a week for Labour following Angela Rayner's resignation. Reform leader Nigel Farage shared his concerns this morning.
An enormously talented bloke. Of that, there's no doubt. You know, I dealt with him when he was a European Commissioner 20 years ago. But to have appointed him to that role was a serious misjudgment from the Prime Minister. We don't yet know what the intelligence briefings would have said, but it looks as though Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's right-hand man, and the Prime Minister ignored the warnings, carried on. He was then reluctant to get rid of Mandelson, and he's now left himself in a very vulnerable position.
Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has unveiled 100 new sanctions on Russia's military and energy sectors as she made her first visit overseas to Kyiv. Arriving in the Ukrainian capital, she met her counterpart and pledged the UK's unwavering support. The visit comes just days after Russian drones strayed into Polish airspace during attacks on Ukraine, triggering a NATO response. Well, that comes as Prince Harry has also made a surprise visit to Kyiv, saying he wants to do everything possible to support Ukrainians injured in the war. The Duke of Sussex arrived by train, greeted with a hug from the founder of Superhumans, an organisation providing prosthetics and rehabilitation. It's his first trip to the Ukrainian capital, part of his wider work with the Invictus Games Foundation. Figures from the ONS show the UK's economy stalled in July despite a 0.4% bounce just the month before. The flat growth was dragged down by the steepest fall in manufacturing for a year, down 1.3%, wiping out gains in retail. The director of the ONS says the slumps reflect broad-based weaknesses across manufacturing industries. A new poll has shown what matters most to the public when it comes to the NHS, and it is clear. Being able, they say, to see a GP quickly. It's the #1 priority for patients ahead of improvements in A&E and staff retention. Even Sir Keir Starmer's flagship pledge that by 2029, 92% of people will get routine hospital treatment within 18 weeks, well, that only comes 5th in the rankings. And just before I go, I'll give you this bit of breaking news we're hearing, in fact, from the Metropolitan Police, that 9 police officers have been suspended today as part of a major and ongoing misconduct investigation at Charing Cross Police Station in central London. The police watchdog saying allegations involve 11 individuals, including serving and former officers, accused of excessive force, discriminatory, misogynistic comments and failing to challenge inappropriate behaviour. So that latest update just into us from the police watchdog. 9 police officers and 11 individuals involved in allegations and suspended as part of that investigation. That's it from me for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Martin.
Thank you very much there, Sam Francis. Now, got some breaking news for you. On the day, of course, the Charlie Kirk suspect is in custody. Got some breaking news. I'm joined by Charlie Peters, our national reporter, on some British political news. Tell us, Charlie.
So, Martin, a 28-year-old has been charged with arson by the name of Joshua Oliver after the Washington and Gateshead South MP Sharon Hodgson's office suffered a major fire. That's coming in just now from the Crown Prosecution Service. So a 28-year-old called Joshua Oliver charged with arson after that incident.
Thank you, Charlie Peters. Now back to our top story today, and of course it is that the FBI have confirmed that they've now caught the man suspected of killing Charlie Kirk. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was arrested last night, and US President Donald Trump had earlier said that Robinson's father helped to turn his son in. And here's how the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, revealed that Robinson had been caught.
We got him. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. Inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle read, "Hey fascist!" ! Catch! ! This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history.
Well, as Utah Governor Spencer Cox, no doubt a huge rising political star in the future. So much to analyse. I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' national reporter Charlie Peters and also by the political commentator Chris Worrell. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Charlie, a huge amount of information came out of that press conference earlier on. The FBI looking a bit flat-footed. They claimed earlier in the day they'd arrested this individual. Turns out he was actually handed in by his father. Centre of the stage, the star of the day was Governor Spencer Cox, Utah governor, and he said we got him. A huge amount of information came out which clearly now shows this has all of the hallmarks of a political assassination, particularly the information on those bullet casings, Charlie.
That's right, Martin, and it's interesting that the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, didn't actually deliver much of that critical information, that it came from the governor instead. And the fact also that they had so much information on the suspect, the footage of him escaping, the rifle that was obviously going through material exploitation in the wooded area found soon after the shooting, but it was because a relative, his family member, his father, had turned him in after he reportedly had referred to the fact that he'd carried out the shooting, this 22-year-old, on a Discord server. And it was really interesting. That's a messaging platform online, typically used by young men, particularly early 20s or teenagers and boys as well, those who are regularly gaming as well. It's a popular platform for young men involved in online subcultures. And I think that information ties into those engravings very much so, because Spencer Cox, he seemed as though he was almost reading an alien language as he was describing some of those engravings. Now, obviously, Bella Ciao, that's an obvious one. That's anti-fascist language from the Second World War. Italian anti-fascists use that term. They still use it today on the left, in the modern Italian left. But it was with some of the more esoteric and online references that Spencer Cox appeared to be a bit confused. And perhaps that confusion is why we heard briefings yesterday, leaks from the ATF, a Federal Bureau of Investigations involved in firearms, that they said that this could be transgender and anti-fascist terminology. Now, what could have led a an investigator, an intelligence analyst, to make that assumption very quickly, having seen those engravings. Perhaps it was the up arrow, the right arrow, and the 3 down symbols on one of those bullets. Now, seeing online a lot of analysis from particularly people who are involved in these Discord subcultures and online subcultures, that could be a reference to a video game function on a controller. And because this 22-year-old, we've also seen footage of him with a gaming PC in what appears to be a dormitory. And the earlier reference to the Discord, that does track as being a realistic reference and something that I think can be deduced with a serious degree of confidence. And also the other reference to notice his bulge. Ooh, what's this? Now, this is like a parodying reference used regularly online to go after very particular online subcultures and also some like role-playing groups. So that language, I have to say, when I heard that, I was quite astonished because I recognised it as sort of language that young people might refer to as a copy-paster, which is when you regularly use the same language over and over again after it attracts infamous or notorious tags associated with it. So it's a language that's been around online in these subcultures, particularly operated by young men, for ages. Which is leading to the questions of why, if this 22-year-old is the shooter who the FBI and the governor of Utah say he is, why did he do it? And what do those engravings tell us? Well, it could point to what we've seen with the Ciao Bella, the anti-fascist language, that far-left inspiration tied in with a very online, a very isolated, radicalising subset of information where he has felt confident in sharing information about what he did, about where he kept his rifle, to someone he knew on the internet, who then passed that information on to his family.
We have live pictures on our screen there of the Utah County Jail where Tyler Robinson is being held presently, handed in by his father, and even this is astonishing information. His father, a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff Department, his mother, a respectable middle-class woman who does work which involves disabled children. They live in a $600,000 house. A student at Utah University himself, not the one where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, but still in the same state. And the conversation then at that press conference, Charlie Peters turned to, well, what turned this young man into somebody so radicalised that he is now the suspect in this assassination? We heard how he became more political, perhaps after he started at university. We heard how he specifically mentioned a friend at a dinner, claimed that Charlie Kirk was full of hate. Chris Worrell, can I bring you in now and put the big question to you? How did an ordinary young kid from a respectable background become a political assassin? And did it happen on campus?
Well, look, Martin, I think, middle-class boredom seems to be Antifa's biggest recruiter. And, with actions like that, they're going to have consequences. And it looks like for him, it'll be, a firing squad. And for someone like his father to shop him in, he's clearly a respectable man, being a sheriff, a man of the law. And, Charlie Kirk was a 31-year-old with 2 children. And I think when you think about that, if that was your son who's taken the life of a father, his children, Charlie's children, are never going to see him again. And, the coverage of, and I saw Ben Lear welling up, having seen some of the footage, is going to be around online for a long time. It's only the right thing to do, if I'm being honest. And when we look at those universities, we're seeing this sort of privilege, people protesting to be tolerant, but then being the most intolerant, and that's kind of purveying in some circles. And we've seen it in various movements when we've seen Hamas rallies here in London, and as we see it also in the UK. And what we've seen here is, from the BLM protests in America, there was uproar. But here there's been, hopefully, they'll be able to make sure that they don't let it spill into further violence, because that's what needs to be avoided. And in fact, the Governor, Spencer Cox, Charlie Peters, was very firm when he said words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there's a huge conversation about hurty words and being upset by words that Charlie Kirk would have said while still alive, and now can no longer say them. And Governor Cox dwelled on the fact that he believes
that Charlie Kirk would want forgiveness. He said, forgiving your enemies is the thing they hate the most, and yet the death penalty by firing squad could be the result of what happened here.
I think if it is the case, as outlined by that press conference and those involved, that Tyler Robinson's father handed him in, that may change the picture on the death penalty as well. There could be a clemency, not towards the 22-year-old, but to his father, an act of mercy to him, because I think we should just take a step back and think about what his dad has done there. That is something very rare, frankly, actually. We shouldn't take that for granted as something that all family members would do if one of their relatives was a suspect in a murder, to detain them and hold them 250 miles away from the site. We don't know how quickly law enforcement got to that house or wherever he was detained by his father. Marty, that takes an enormous amount of bravery and moral as well as physical courage. And I think a lot of people are going to expect Tyler Robinson's father to come in for some praise for that action, actually, to prioritise public goodness and public safety over your own family interests. Certainly not a universal norm. The question will come back to what happened to this boy.
Yeah.
And he really is a kid, let's be frank. They call them college kids in the United States for a reason, because there's still quite a young culture, even into early adulthood in that part of the world. Thinking about what drove him to this moment, if it is the case that he was the shooter on that roof, and it seems all the authorities are highly confident that's the case, that online subculture and the world he operated in with Discord, and what is clearly evidence of far-left language being used, hey fascist, catch, and mixed in with the gaming references, but I think that's what is going on there, will point investigators to analyse what sort of degenerate humour, leftish world he operated in, away from reality. And it is about, as Spencer Cox has spoken about tonight, but also plenty of times, he's been speaking about political violence for a long time, talking about losing connection with humanity, and perhaps that's what's happened to this young man, warped in a far-left, violent world online.
Troy Peters, excellent analysis. Thank you very much. And Chris Worrell, thank you for joining us in the studio today. Now, there's been widespread outrage over the comments by the President-elect of the Oxford Union, who has appeared to celebrate the murder of Charlie Kirk. Well, George Aberoni, who met Kirk during a debate at Oxford University on toxic masculinity earlier this year, he made the comments on WhatsApp and on Instagram. Well, let's speak now with the Professor of International Relations at the University of Oxford, Edward Howell. Edward, welcome to the show. Grotesque comments, and grotesque comments that we've seen echoed around the world. People seemingly joyous at the death of Charlie Kirk. Surely this individual has to go.
Good afternoon and thank you. Well, I think firstly it's important to highlight that the Oxford Union is not part of the University of Oxford, but the vast majority of its membership is from the university, and crucially, the leadership comes from students from the university. This is yet another issue for the Oxford Union. It was called the last bastion of free speech, as Harold Macmillan once called it. But this year we've seen vile acts of anti-Semitism within the Union chamber, and now we have the President-elect making deplorable claims following a heinous act of violence. Since when was it deemed appropriate to respond in this way to a brutal act of murder? This is no way to react. It's akin, as you say, to those people online cheerleading the murder of Kirk. And in my view, irrespective of whether you agree or disagree with Kirk's views, now is the time to think carefully about violence in the United States and actual safety and actual violence on university campuses.
You know, Edward Howe, we're hearing about how Tyler Robinson may have been radicalised on campus. I put it to you, that's happening in Britain as well. And George Aberoni, who is, as you say, the President-elect, he was also previously in charge of He was the vice president of the Oxford African and Caribbean Society. That was brought in after the death of George Floyd. He's been very outspoken on matters of race. And to post, Charlie Kirk got shot, so let's bleeping go. Charlie Kirk got shot, LOL, LOL, an exaggeration of laughing out loud. This is not the kind of thing we should tolerate on British campuses, and we have to draw a line in the sand. I put it to you again, this individual must be removed from his post.
If the Oxford Union is supposed to defend freedom of speech and the rights of people outlining opinions from different perspectives, such as Charlie Kirk, with whom the President-elect clearly disagreed at Kirk's visit to the institution earlier this year, this does not warrant such deplorable reactions. My question is this: why did the President-elect not instead highlight the importance that free speech activists such as Kirk should be protected, not murdered, for expressing their views? How committed is this man to upholding the accommodation of diverse views in a civilised manner at the Oxford Union?
Edward Howell, you know, I'm not advocating cancel culture here, but I'm just after what is basic parity. I put it to you, if a black political activist had been assassinated and a white man in a similar position had put messages out like this, their feet would not have touched the ground, they'd have been booted off the campus, period.
Indeed, the President-elect should seriously think whether he is fit to lead such an organisation. I think this is no way to react to a brutal and heinous act of murder. It must be said, the Oxford Union is not part of the University of Oxford, but it forms a key focal point of high-end debate. And if it is to retain this status, then we need to make sure that everyone is committed to civilised debate and not to making claims that are basically deplorable and uncalled for.
OK, thank you for joining us on the show. I appreciate your time. That's a Professor of International Relations at the University of Oxford, Edward Howell. Thank you very much. Now, a quick writer reply. The Oxford Union condemned President-elect George Abraonye's comments and he's apologised for his messages. Now, on your screen now, live pictures of the view of the Utah County Jail, where Tyler Robinson, a young Utah man aged 22, suspected of killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk, is at the university there, is now in custody inside that building. Live pictures on your screen. Coming up next, plenty more reaction to that massive breaking news that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has been named as a 20-year-old man from Utah called Tyler Robinson. You with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, it's 5:26. Let's get more now. Today's huge breaking news. Police have caught the man suspected of killing Charlie Kirk. It's been revealed that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was turned into police by a member of his family, believed to be his father, a 27-year veteran of Washington County Sheriff's Department. An astonishing piece of information in itself. Well, let's now speak with the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who joins us on GB News. Chris Philp, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. This has all the hallmarks, clearly, Chris Philp, now, of a politically motivated assassination. The insignia, the inscriptions on the shell casings, "Hey fascist," "Catch," Bella Ciao, well-known anti-fascist song. Clearly, we have the hallmarks here of somebody radicalised so much they have taken a life. What's your view on this astonishing case?
Well, good afternoon, Martin. I mean, firstly, of course, my thoughts are with Erica, Charlie's wife, and their 2 young children who have suffered this appalling tragedy. He was assassinated. Let's just call it what it is. It was an assassination. It was done in cold blood. Obviously, we're pleased that the assassin has been caught. And as you say, from the context and including the engravings on the shell casings, it does appear to be a politically motivated assassination because the murderer, the assassin, didn't agree with Charlie's political views. That is obviously sick. It's absolutely appalling that political violence of that kind has happened anywhere in the world, but in America, the land of freedom. It's particularly appalling and horrifying that this man, this perpetrator who you're showing on the screen now, has conducted this assassination for political reasons. And political violence is never, ever acceptable. In civilized democracies like the UK and the US, we should settle our differences through debate and through elections, not through violence, which evidently is what happened here.
And Chris Philp, the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, pointed out that political violence is different to all of the violence, he claimed, because if we can't have a clash of ideas, we have no hope. And Chris Philp, may I put it to you that this cancer is coming to our shores. It's already here. We've seen the tragic murder of David Amos, one of your former colleagues. We've seen John McDonnell comparing Nigel Farage this week to Adolf Hitler. This afternoon, we've seen a man charged with the firebombing of a Labour parliamentarian's office in the Sunderland area. This is an absolute cancer and it has to stop.
And Martin, I agree, and I agree with the governor. Political violence is particularly evil and insidious because it undermines the very fabric of our freedom and our democracy. And as you say, you've listed a number of examples there where it has happened on UK soil. And in fact, what organisations like Palestine Action do is a form of it as well, because they are using violence to try and advance a political agenda. They've attacked a police officer with a sledgehammer. They've damaged and trashed premises. They've sabotaged aircraft. Now, that's obviously much less serious than an assassination, but it is part of the same spectrum, using violence for political reasons. And it is completely unacceptable. And what happened to the Labour MP's constituency surgery, it's completely unacceptable as well. Political violence has no place in a civilised society, and we've got to fight it wherever we find it.
Chris Philp, can I cut to the chase? And we hear a lot about the so-called far right. The Prime Minister himself condemned the far right in the aftermath of the Southport riots. Have we got a problem with the hard left, with the far left? It clearly seems that this individual in the States has been radicalised. Thus, do you think we have got a growing problem with the far left, and that's spilling over into the United Kingdom as well?
Well, I think we see people on the left who, wrap so much in their own sense of moral superiority, they think it's okay to use very inflammatory language. As you say, Keir Starmer did it. in January when he smeared people, actually including me, as jumping on a far-right bandwagon, in his words, for calling out the rape gang scandal. People on the left do this the whole time. John McDonnell, you mentioned, I think he called a few years ago for Esther McVeigh to be lynched. So I think when people on the left use this very, very inflammatory language, it does open the door to some of their supporters to use actual violence. And it's not a theoretical thing. You mentioned the murder of Sir David Amess. Of course, I've mentioned Palestine Action already. We're seeing actual acts of violence taking place. And that's why people in political life, in public life, need to just choose their language carefully and avoid inflaming tensions of those kinds. I think it applies to everybody, actually. But it does tend to be people on the left who reach most quickly for that kind of language, probably because they're suffused with this sense of moral superiority and they think it's somehow justified, but it's not justified ever. But I would say that, I'd say that to everybody in politics, on the left and the right, just to make your point passionately, make it forcefully, but never use language which might incite or in any way excuse violence, because it will just destroy the basis of our civilization and our society.
Chris Philp, I think you're right. I think a great starting point would just to stop calling people you disagree with fascists. Fascists are the one who just eradicate their political opponents, and the people who are anti-fascist, they used to be the ones who listened. We've lost our way. Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, thank you very much for joining us on GB News. It's always a pleasure to have your input. Now, the huge breaking news that the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk has been named as a 22-year-old from Utah called Tyler Robinson. Plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, firstly, stay safe. Here's your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the M5 southbound in Gloucestershire should be aware of a collision between junction 13 and 14, causing a delay of 15 minutes. On the A3 southbound in Surrey, one lane is blocked due to a broken down vehicle, delaying traffic by 15 minutes. On the M81 northbound in Leicestershire, a broken down vehicle has closed one of 4 lanes. There are major disruptions on the M62 westbound exit at junction 19 due to a traffic incident. And on the trains, Grand Central and Great Northern services are experiencing major disruptions between Kentish Town, Stevenage and London until the end of service. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Very good evening. 5:30, the top stories this hour. Details and mugshots of the man suspected of killing political activist Charlie Kirk have been released by officials. Utah's governor named him as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Authorities have also revealed chilling messages he allegedly inscribed on bullet casings and the role that family members played in him being apprehended. Here, a 28-year-old man has been charged with arson after a major fire tore through Labour MP Sharon Hodgson's constituency office. Joshua Oliver's accused of starting the blaze that left part of the building destroyed. Police say no one was injured. Fury at number 10 over the sacking of Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to Washington. He was forced out over ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Labour MPs are calling the episode a shambles as opposition parties demand vetting documents be released. The Netherlands say they'll boycott Eurovision 2026 if Israel competes, joining Ireland in protest over Gaza. The Dutch broadcaster said Israel's actions clash with the contest's values. UK Eurovision veteran Phil Coulter has also urged the BBC to pull out. And the UN Security Council has condemned Israel's strike on a Hamas compound in Doha, a move unusually backed by the United States. The Qatari Prime Minister told the Council Israel has gone beyond any borders. Israel, though, insists there is no sanctuary for terrorists. That is the news for now. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 6.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. For a time this evening, we'll see showers easing away, some heavy rain moving into northern areas overnight, and it's going to be quite breezy at times, particularly if you catch any heavy showers, turning quite gusty. And looking at the bigger picture, we've got low pressure situated to the north, bringing us in this westerly flow. So it's mainly western areas that are catching the bulk of the showers, but they're still spread eastwards overnight, so even across eastern central parts of England, we could catch the odd one or two. A mix of showers and clear spells through the course of the night before this heavy showery band starts to move into southern Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales through the early hours of the morning. So some quite heavy downpours during Saturday morning, but for many it will be a mixture of dry spells and also some showers. Now, some of these showers could linger through the morning, particularly across Scotland. This heavy band pushing its way eastwards into the North Sea. It clears fairly quickly, some clearer skies behind, but also a mixture of showers, particularly around western coasts. Similar across Northern Ireland, there'll be a fair amount of cloud around and some showers starting to push into the west. And elsewhere across England and Wales, sunny spells and showers. And that's the theme for the beginning of the weekend. Now, some of these showers could turn heavy. We could see some hail and thunder mixed in there too. And once again, the bulk of the showers will be pushing into western areas, but odd showers could drift their way eastwards into central and eastern parts of England. Some sunny spells behind it, though it's going to be quite breezy, particularly around any exposed areas. And temperatures will be around average for the time of year, highs reaching around 18 to 19 degrees Celsius in the south. Still a chance of some showers through into the evening. They'll eventually ease away, a ridge of high pressure building, bringing a cool night with clearer skies. And there'll be some sunshine to start the day before heavy outbreaks of rain and some strong winds move through on Sunday. Now, there is a Met Office warning issued for the evening through into Monday, so keep an eye on the Met Office website for any details.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 5:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, it's just been an incredible day of information, of course, on what's now looking very much like a political assassination of Charlie Kirk. We had a press conference earlier on, and it was from the governor of Utah, that's Spencer Cox. Also present was the FBI Director, Kash Patel, and Sheriff Mike Smith. Live pictures on your screen now of the Utah County Jail, where that suspect named in that press conference, Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old from Utah, is being held. We learned that Robinson was shocked to the police by his father, a 27-year veteran of Washington County Sheriff's Department. His mother works for an organisation that helps disabled children. They live in a $600,000 house. He attended Utah State University. That's a different campus to where Charlie Kirk was shot dead. That was Utah Valley University, one of 3 sons, we understand. And yet something changed. We learned in that press conference that upon attending Utah State University, their son became more politicised. We heard he was speaking openly at family dinner parties of how Charlie Kirk was filled with hate. He spoke of his dislike for Charlie Kirk, and family members began to be concerned that something had happened to Tyler Robinson on his time on campus. We then learned about the inscriptions, the messages on bullet casings, all of which points clearly towards the thesis now. This was a clear political assassination, and Spencer Cox saying, "We got him. clearly saying they believe this is their suspect. They have their man. Well, let's now speak with the author and the journalist Carl Spencer for more reaction to the arrest of Tyler Robinson for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Carl Spencer, welcome to the show. You've written a book, I believe, on Charlie Kirk. What's your take on this incredible information that's come out today?
Well, I think we're going to have to learn more about who this person was. I think he, at this point, is he's a little bit of a mystery character. He's not really filling the demographic that I think that we were told that he would from certain corners in the United States. He sounds like a more complex figure. We know that he came from a family of registered Republicans. We know that he was an avid gun user and that he had started using guns very early on in his life, and that is going to be a very interesting thing to figure out, where he learned to use these guns and how he became such a fan of them.
Interesting, Carl Spencer, how you zone in straight away on the Republican angle to his family and the guns. And yet let's talk about the actual information that's divulged in that press conference. Clearly, the inscriptions on the shell casings, "Hey, fascist, catch," with 3 arrows on them, which is believed to be linked to the anti-fascist movement. Bella Ciao was the inscription on another shell casing. That's a famous anti-fascist song linked with Italy in the 1930s. The evidence seems to be overwhelming that this was a man motivated by the radical politics of the left.
So I guess this guy didn't like fascists. I guess he had an issue with fascists. I just don't know enough about him at this point. I wasn't clear, maybe you guys have some insight on this. I wasn't clear on why he had I think there was one of those terrible comments on the bullet that said, if you have this bullet, you're gay. Was he anti-gay? I'm not sure. Do you know what that means?
Well, all we know is that the inscription was, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
Yeah,
I mean, we don't. I mean,
I know. I guess he may have been. I just don't know. He may have been of somebody who was opposed to gay culture. I don't know. It's very confusing at this point to really know what the deal was. It does sound like he admired folks in Italy during World War II who opposed fascism. Why he took that connection to Charlie Kirk, I don't know.
Well, perhaps it's because, as Donald Trump said, if you call your political opponents fascists for long enough, then people end up dead.
Yeah, I guess if he thought that Charlie Kirk, I think that he clearly did not like Charlie Kirk, and he took that to a violent place. He was a gun owner. He was somebody who really, obviously, in a lot of the photos that I've seen, he really glorified guns. I think the thing that is so dangerous is to have people who are passionate and negative and angry and enraged have guns. Those are not people we want to have guns in our country or anyone's country.
Carl Spencer, Charlie Kirk spoke a lot about guns himself, and he defended the right to have guns because he said it's a risk worth taking for people to have guns if they're occasionally used in a bad manner. That prophetic words that he was, of course, his life was taken by a gun. But again, you're putting this round to gun ownership. You know, the person who pulled the trigger is the issue here. And the person who pulled the trigger seems to be politically motivated by the radical left. You don't seem to want to engage in that, Kyle.
I don't think you know. Listen, I really don't think that you know. First of all, I don't know who the radical left is. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I also don't know that you know this. You don't know that right now. You don't know that he was motivated by the right. You don't know what motivated him right now. That is a sad, tragic thing.
Do you think the FBI would announce this at a press conference and say, "We've got our man"? And when they were asked by the press, was this a politically motivated assassination? And the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, says, "I think that's self-evident from what was talked about today." You don't think this is the line worthy? You seem to think, it could be because his parents were Republicans. It's astonishing.
I do. I think it's very clear that there was something political here, and it's very clear that his parents were Republican. It's very clear this was a politically motivated tragic event, I also think it's very clear that this man was very, very disturbed and very confused and very angry. And I think it's also clear that he lived in a family where gun culture was very, very prevalent. What a tragic combination. That is a very, very tragic combination. A very disturbed, violent young man and guns. Tragic.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think anybody in our country wants to see very dangerous, dangerous young men with guns.
Yeah, so again, it's men, it's guns, but you don't seem to want to face the evidence that's clear in front of you that this seems to be the political motivations of an increasingly radicalised left, and that's perhaps a culture that's prevalent on American university campuses.
First of all, I don't know who the radicalized left is. I also don't think that
Antifa?
anybody. So are you trying to say, sir, are you trying to say, first of all, Antifa has not been categorized as a terrorist group in our country. Are you a journalist trying to
Yes, I
say
am.
right now?
And I'm relaying the
that this
information that was
Antifa?
relayed to us by
I'm
the
just curious, are
FBI
you a
and the
journalist
governor of
trying to
Utah
say
today,
that
and you
this
don't
was
seem to want to
Antifa?
address the evidence. You just want to ignore it because it doesn't fit your
Are you
agenda. I'm
telling
just
me,
relaying
sir,
what
that
was
there's
told to
evidence?
us by the press.
Are you telling me that you're going to tell your audience right now that there is evidence that this was an Antifa event? That is
No,
very
I'm telling you.
irresponsible of you.
I'm telling you about the inscriptions on the bullets. I'm telling you what the FBI told us. I'm telling you what the governor of Utah told us.
That Antifa was involved in this.
No, I didn't say Antifa
No,
involved. I just said that's a mind.
Thank you for fact-checking yourself. I appreciate you fact-checking yourself for your audience.
No, I'm not. You've completely misjudged and misrepresented what I said. I said there's a mindset in America where young people are being radicalised by the political left, and a part of that is Antifa. That's what I said. Carl Spencer, thanks for joining us on the show. Thank you very much for your time. Well, live pictures now. Live pictures next on your screen of the Utah County Jail where Tyler Robinson is being held. Coming up, more reaction to the huge breaking news story that Tyler Robinson, the man believed to be the fatal shooter of the political activist Charlie Kirk, has been named, and it's Utah resident Tyler Robinson.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I thought, well, why not? It's a very ambitious project, but I'm not surprised it's so many years behind schedule, and the sheer cost of it is amazing. But it's a shame it looks like it might not be going ahead, but there are a few countries they can use as a bit of a backup.
Oh, Eddie, we've got some images here of you on the screen. Do you remember these moments here?
Oh, I remember them well. It's nearly 38 years ago, back in Calgary, and I can still remember it like it was yesterday.
Was that the 19... So Eddie, just for the audience know who you are the first person to represent Great Britain in Olympic ski jumping. That's right. So that was it 1988. Was this your first performance we can see here?
It was. I think it was the small hill, that one, and on the 70 metre, and then a week later I did the 90 metre. So, yeah, I became Britain's first ever Olympic ski jumper. So I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, well, absolutely. Look at those scenes. They're absolutely glorious, Eddie. Love to see it. Well, just go back to our previous topic there for a second. So you know, I'm guessing you have seen some of the facilities around the world. Where seems like a sensible place to have this? Because, of course, we're considering South Korea and other countries as well. Where would you pick this? What would be the best location in your experience, Eddie?
Well, actually, about, I can't remember the year, but at least 10 to 15 years ago, I commentated on the Asian Olympics. And I was commentating when it was in Kazakhstan, in Almaty. So that's another place that they could use for the Asian Olympics. Unfortunately, in the ski jumping event where I was commentating, there were only 12 jumpers taking part. So it was a very, very small competition, but it was great fun. And they do have a ski jump in Kazakhstan, so maybe they can use that as well as a backup.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes before 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a reminder of that huge breaking news story today that police have now caught the man suspected of killing Charlie Kirk. It's been revealed that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was turned in to police by a member of his family, believed to be his father. We've got some live pictures on your screens now of the county jail in Utah, where Tyler Robinson is currently being held after being handed in by his father. His father, 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department. His mother, a respectable middle-class worker, works with disabled children. They're believed to live in a $600,000 house, one of 3 sons. There are pictures of him with guns from an early age. No surprise, perhaps, if his father worked for the county sheriff department. He changed when he went to university. Family members said he became increasingly political. We learned at a press conference thrown by the FBI early today in Utah and the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox. He spoke how Charlie Kirk was filled with hate. He spoke on private messages on Discord with a roommate about the need to locate a rifle, to hide it at a drop point. Details then of what we found at the crime scene, those shells inscribed with messages, "Hey fascists, catch Bella Ciao." Bella Ciao, a well-known anti-fascist song from America. Clearly, this seems to intimate that this young man was radicalised into becoming an assassin. Took the life of Charlie Kirk on a campus when Charlie Kirk simply went there to engage with people who disagreed with him, to try and get them to debate. For that, he paid the ultimate price with his life by, it seems, an intolerant political left who don't like to engage with people, they don't like to lose debates, they like to silence their opponents. I put it to you, that is the action of a true fascist. Thanks for your company this week. It's been a genuine pleasure. Up next is Jubes Go Tonight, hosted by Miriam Case. Miriam, what's on your menu?
Thank you, Martin. Well, we will be fearlessly debating tonight. I've got a fantastic panel. Matt Goodwin and Joe Phillips will be joining me. We will be debating that breaking news. What's the significance of those anti-fascist messages that were on the bullets of the suspect? Should there be any limits to free speech after the governor of Utah has said that social media is like a cancer that's poisoning our society? We'll be debating all that along with the Oxford Union president-elect who has not been disciplined for celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. That's all up next, but first of all, here is your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. For a time this evening, we'll see showers easing away, some heavy rain moving into northern areas overnight, and it's going to be quite breezy at times, particularly if you catch any heavy showers, turning quite gusty. And looking at the bigger picture, we've got low pressure situated to the north, bringing us in this westerly flow. So it's mainly western areas that are catching the bulk of the showers, but they're still spread eastwards overnight. So even across eastern central parts of England, we could catch the odd one or two. A mix of showers and clear spells through the course of the night before this heavy showery band starts to move into southern Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales through the early hours of